on the repair work that needs to be done in KwaZulu-Natal. We've heard a lot about the money that's going to go towards repairing businesses, putting people back on their feet so that they can keep their businesses going, and all of that is extremely important. But there's been a lot of damage done to the social fabric within KwaZulu-Natal, and civil society bodies are trying to restore peace in parts of the province, and that of course includes Phoenix, where at least 22 people have been confirmed to have died there following recent violence. And just today we heard from our reporter Desin Thathia, who was in Lamontville, which of course is an area that had a lot of looting. A woman was shot dead, it seems, caught in the crossfire, while police, we understand, were doing the rounds to try and reclaim looted goods. Let's bring in violence monitor Professor Mary de Haas now. Professor, thank you so much for your time. I'm just wondering, what is your assessment of the tension in KwaZulu-Natal, both within communities who were affected and between different communities at this point?
Yeah, it's just Mary. Look, I think you need to look at the background here. We come from a very divided racial past. A sad thing about South Africa is that we still have all these racial categories. They should have been done away with in 1994, like some other African countries, instead of which they've actually been entrenched, and race is linked to economic privilege, again, just as it was under apartheid. Okay, that's for context. So there's a very clear awareness of racial identity. And the other important factor is that during the Zuma years, the nation-building initiatives of Presidents Mandela and Mbeki had largely fallen away. We had comments about return to tribalism, racial categories. So that's the context. Now, if you look at Phoenix, let's take Phoenix, for example, because that's the main focus, but not the only one, in which there have been these so-called black African, Indian, so-called tensions, but the main one. And if you look at Phoenix, it's surrounded by huge areas of what were formerly KwaZulu, right? So when the looting happened last week, even in middle-class Durban areas, apart from a few shack areas, people were tense, worried. And of course in Phoenix, when it starts, you have what has become actually a non-racial community with a lot of black Africans living there, but still primarily Indian in kind of profile. And you have many people, and the fears go up, and the police didn't respond in time. The security companies were called in. There's a whole story there, and allegedly some of them behave very badly. Okay. And then you also have in Phoenix a kind of drug gangsterism. Now, they also seem to have acted as vigilantes. So the tensions are there. I just want to remind you that we haven't actually uncovered the people behind this, so none of us know if we're going to get any more of this. So in Phoenix, there are a lot of tensions, and there are two things that are really urgent, I think. One is justice. The allegations are flying around about who killed who, how they were killed. Was it just in the looting and the trampling? Were they shot? We need some justice there, because that sets the background, because people are angry. You've only got to look at what they say to the media. The other thing, of course, these are black Africans largely. Even residents in the area were affected, Africans living next to their Indian neighbors. Now, the other thing, though, is, and this is what I've been trying to say to people, we need strong civil society intervention. In your area, in Phoenix, set up a non-racial forum, including all the different so-called races, and I just hate this term, I wish we weren't using it, that live there. And, the leaders, not politicians, bring in faith-based organizations, people who are involved in NPO work. There are a lot of people there feeding hungry people, for example. Bring in people who are known, who are respected in the area, because the community outreach they do, not politicians.
Yeah, and that is, it's interesting.
That dialogue.
You make such a good point, because it's rebuilding of a very different nature. It's not that tangible, but it's creating those links, it's creating those trust relationships. That and justice is, as you say, the way to get through this. I have another question for you. Could this happen again? You made the point, we haven't got the perpetrators. We've got a few people arrested, but the idea of finding the so-called masterminds, it's still rather murky. So my question to you is there still a real and present danger that the people who started this, for the reasons that they started this, will be tempted to try and carry on or start again?
I think it's quite possible. I don't have... I mean, I've heard various goings-on behind the political scenes, which suggests to me that there are still people who think the struggle's not over yet. For whatever the struggle was, it was no doubt for some sort of economic enrichment. And I mean, I must also point out a very important factor is the ANC, as is known, is broke. And there are local government elections coming up. Councillors have a history of buying support through food parcels, and we have councillors elected on the Zuma ticket, and they will want to come back. Now, all these factors may play a part in some sort of further destabilization. We have to be prepared. We can't take it for granted it won't happen. And in the meantime, though, we need proper policing, because if the policing had gone in with public order policing and water cannons, when this trouble started, we might not have had quite so much carnage in Phoenix. That's got to be sorted out. But there must be outreach. I mean, I've just been talking this afternoon with some colleagues of mine. We've actually got to build strong civil society groupings in South Africa. We've got to start with that. You start in Phoenix, you start even in your neighborhood in Phoenix, where you've got people of different races living. You know, most of us have WhatsApp groups in our neighborhoods. Now you take that further, you reach out to people, because you bear in mind that you have to be prepared, and you monitor the police. Are the police prepared? You know, is there an early warning system to get hold of people like me that can also get hold of the police? But you also reach out at the same time to try and overcome, you know, apartheid and its racial divisions were built on these stereotypes. Yeah. That's what's central to prejudice. We've got to find a way of overcoming that, and the best way to do it is, of course, for people to mingle to an accurate information, because this has also been characterized by so much incitement and disinformation.
And attempts to polarize as well. And you make such a good point that by forming relationships, even if it's on your street WhatsApp group, get to know each other, rebuild those relationships. Such brilliant points. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Professor Mary de Haas, she's a violence monitor and Honorary Research Associate at the University of KwaZulu-Natal.